Okay. So we should, I think, be live now. Okay. So, welcome to Love Speaks Love, everybody. I am Denise, your host, and my two fabulous guests this week are Susanne and Amara. Oh, who are you again? Susanne and Amara and Damien Nola. I mixed your names up then. I did the Mia of Damien. Anyway, welcome. It's lovely to have you both here. And thank you everybody who's joining us live on Facebook, and also anyone who is watching the replay or on YouTube. So I'm just going to share it to a couple of places. Just bear with us a second. Share it to a couple of pages. Share it to Love Speaks Love. And to a couple of groups. There we go. I wish I could put in order all the groups so that they're in the order that I want them to be in for ease of use. There. It always seems to be that the one that you want to do is right at the end. There it is. Okay. Okay, thank you everybody for your patience. So while people are gathering, I invite us all to bring our awareness to our heart space. And let us all breathe in love. And breathing out anything of the day so far or the day ahead. Breathing love into every cell of your body. And I invite you to bring a little smile to your face. And send that smile to every cell of your bodies. And extending the heart awareness out now to the heart of Mama Gaia. Feeling her love, her gratitude, and her recognition of all of us. And her gratitude for all that we do and all that we are. And feeling Gaia's love moving into every cell of your body. And extending that heart awareness out now to the heart of the sun. Feeling that beautiful solar energy returning to you into every cell of your body. And extending that heart awareness out now to the heart of Source Creator. And inviting Source energy into every cell of your body. And as you breathe deeply, feeling yourself fully present in your physical body. Feeling anchored into the heart of Gaia, of New Earth. And also just feeling that connection to the crystalline templates of energy that emanate out from Gaia's beautiful diamond heart. And if there's anything that either of my two beautiful guests wish to add to this, please feel free to unmute yourself and do so. And if not, then I invite us all, with our presence in our hearts, our presence fully in our physical bodies. And I invite us, if our eyes are closed, to just open them. So for those that don't know, Love Speaks Love is a platform to share wisdom, experience, quite often light language, but it's not essential. And it's a place for us to come together. It's a hub. So you've both been on here before, so welcome back. It's really, really lovely to have you both here. I'll let either of you speak who wish to first, but how are you doing? How are you finding the current energies? Cruisy? Easy?
I'm going to hand over to Damien.
So, hi everyone. The current energies, for myself, they have taken somewhat of a lull after the storm. The build up to Lionsgate and Lionsgate itself was very intense. A lot of very deep movement personally and in my wider community, and as far as I'm aware on the planetary stage as well. A lot of deep core foundational survival death type energetics really moving through the system. So in my experience and those with whom I work and friends, colleagues, a lot of that movement really through what sits in the root chakra. It's our deep sense of identification with I must survive, I must have my needs met, and all of the fear that accompanies that, and all of our endeavor to control reality in order to conform to that. So really a movement into, I suppose, a deep surrender into that and a deep examination of that. There's space where, because there's really just that deep sense of identification with all that stuff that sits in the body and the genetics and our ancestral consciousness, where we haven't had our needs met, and our reaction to that and how we make that personal. And I know for myself, that was very much this passioning of there must be something wrong with me, inverted commas, which we create as children to explain that, just as a rational or irrational experiences. And we try to rationalize them in order that we can comprehend them, and then we feel some level of control because we have a story around it. Whereas, if it's irrational, it's more scary because it's like, I don't understand it, where do I even begin? And really, what I have found within my own experience and the experience of many people that I have been working with is really that sort of breakthrough of that stuff that sits in the root around that fundamental sense of being broken, which really comes from that place of, as I understand it, that sense of being separate from the divine, separate from our true nature, that sense of having been abandoned by God. And if we look at the larger world stage, obviously we see that playing out hugely. And my understanding, as far as I can know, I mean, we never see the totality of the bigger picture, but as much as we can know on this space, I see it really as a movement through that at present. We're really in that phase of humanity's collective evolution where that stuff is actually being met, because as far as I know, all through human history, we never really dealt with it. We've just had this whole sort of karmic interplay of the same situation just turning up. Same situation, different actors, different clothes, but we've never really faced that human survival stuff and war and aggression, and I think it's really just come to crunch point. And also with the amount of light that's coming in to the planet at present, it's supporting that movement. Light is coming in and really illuminating that within we'll call it the sort of collective shadow or collective unconscious of humanity, and really bringing us into a place where we're moving from out of that space of just purely being rooted in survival consciousness and fear and control into a deeper place of alignment with truth. And I could speak on terms of how that looks, but it brings us really into a space of the unknown, because we don't know how that looks. We have many concepts around how that looks, and we like to say, it looks like us being more compassionate and heartfelt and etc., etc. And for sure that's true, but if we really open to the depth of it, it's opening to something completely entirely new, and thereby completely mysterious and unknown. And generally, as humans, we're not comfortable with that. As mystics and explorers of spirituality, for want of a better word, obviously we have an interest in that and a deep focus of commitment to that, but it doesn't mean we're necessarily comfortable with it all the time by any means whatsoever. And we are the ones who are up for that. So for the rest of humanity, Lord only knows what's going on with them in that respect, which is why this deep call to presence is so much needed within the world at this time, and for us to really step into that place of the root and that sense of stability, which is, I would say, why so much light is illuminating that at current. It's really bringing us into a place of an understanding of what is true stability, because we've been conditioned to think that stability is control, or stability is being strong, which is actually really just rigidity ultimately, and resistance to life. And so bringing us into that place where we're really examining what it is to surrender into the unknown and to be present with that, and to respond to that from a place of heart or truth, rather than our conditioned response, which is what we've done for thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years. The craziness happens in the world and we see how we react. Fear comes up, control comes up, whatever comes up and presents itself as fear is generally seen as the enemy, generally seen as something to control or overcome. Generally, we see it from that perspective of duality, it and us. And so, it's calling us into a space of, how do I meet this actually from a space of deep compassion, deep stability, deep self-awareness. How do I not disassociate? So it's all that root chakra type stuff. Of how do I actually remain present with this and meet it? So that's been my own personal journey over the last sort of month or so. And as I said, friends, family, colleagues, etc.
Thank you, Damien. You are very wise. And I totally get what you're saying as well. And it feels like it's the core of everything, isn't it? It's the core fears, it's the core beliefs. And often when you're working on beliefs, you kind of like, you wade through some of the ones nearer the surface, but it's actually the core ones that we want to be getting into. Can I ask you, if you're feeling fear coming up, and those things that you were talking about, how do you get back to center? How do you come back to your heart, or how do you deal with that when you're feeling the fears?
For myself, it's been a combination of just years of practice, research, because like anything, it's not necessarily going to come just like that. When we get gripped deeply by fear, it can be easy to be carried away into it, and there is a certain level of what's what I'm looking for, experience, for want of better terminology, whereby we learn to become present with that and stable with that. But as a simple technique that we can use wherever we find ourselves to be on the path, whether we've been doing it for years and years and years and years, or we're completely new to it. Breath, very important. When we go into fear, we tend to contract and tighten, and we forget to breathe. And when we do that, we immediately move into resistance. And so that fear is coming up, and rather than flowing through, it's just going. And so first thing is just very simply breathe. And it sounds like the simplest thing in the world, but it has a noticeable effect system of, okay, what happens when I actually breathe and I'm present with what is here? Often also when fear comes up, our immediate reaction is to go into all sorts of story and fantasy around such, and we're not actually present with the fear, we're present with this whole drama that's going on in our head about what we think is going on, which has nothing to do with reality whatsoever. So it's breathe, become present with what is actually in front of me, what is actually happening here, rather than the mental mind spin of what is going on. And then we can actually meet it from that space of stability and from that place of presence. And then thirdly, we bring heart to it. We bring our compassionate wisdom to it. So an aspect of bringing wisdom to it is just that focus of presence and actually clearly seeing it for what it is, rather than overlaying our mind spin onto it. And then when we become present with something, obviously we become intimate with it. And within that focus of intimacy, naturally there's love and there's openness to whatever's there. Even if what is there is a hell no, we actually become present with that. So very often people can sort of experience of it as like, but I'm really in deep resistance. And I'm like, well, then become present with the resistance. There's nothing wrong with resistance whatsoever. It's just bringing heart and presence to it. It's like you don't have to be like, yeah, I'm going to feel it all. It's like if resistance is there, resistance is there. So we just become intimately close and present with whatever is there. And then we open to grace, to the divine, and the movement of grace through that. Now, that's the basis of, so it's all spiritual work. How do we come into a deep focus of intimate relationship with life and reality? And myself, Susanne, yourself, I know we do a lot of, shall we say, esoteric type work that can look very out there, and angels and etc., etc., etc. But really, at the end of the day, it comes down to that simple focus of how does this support me to really show up in life? How does this support me to be present with reality? Show up truthfully, compassionately, and in connection. Because the vast majority of us walk around deeply disconnected. And we wonder why life is the way it is. All of the, from my understanding, all of the craziness in the world really comes from that space of disconnection. Fundamentally speaking, obviously there's layers upon layers upon layers that are built upon that, absolutely. But if we're really to fundamentally address the, shall we say, the core of the human condition, it's really comes from that space of a deep sense of disconnection, a deep set place of not knowing who we truly are.
Beautiful.
No fault of our own. It's it's the human condition. So we enter into that innocently, but still we have to take responsibility for that at the same time.
Thank you. Beautiful answer. And breathing is the thing for me as well. It's partly getting into the habit of it as well. Like not just going, oh, I'm fearful, but kind of doing it often enough that it then becomes second nature. Oh, I'm fearful. Oh, I could breathe now. That might be helpful. And it blows me away how quickly that feeling can disperse just with the breath. Like breath work is super, super powerful. If there's one thing to learn to help us, if it's down to just one thing, I would say that it's breath work. Susanne, anything you want to add to what Damien said first of all, and then perhaps talk about the energies for you?
Yeah, I really concur with everything Damien shared. I think we have like one heart. That's Damien's voice, this beautiful stream of that felt sense. That's certainly been my experience too over Lionsgate, really deepening into that position of the deep spaces where we dissociate and we're not necessarily aware of that dissociation, and it shows up in your body now with the energies which are stronger waves. They're showing very much in the body. We've been brought into the body to bring our divinity in and stop escaping out, which is, of course, goes back to the last bit, which is where we are taught from the very foundations of being human to dissociate and to deny and to not show up for ourselves or for our feelings or for what's actually going on. We're real masters of escapism. while there's no denial of multidimensionality and the amazing consciousness that we are, it's often used as an escape route. It's used as a bypass route for us to remain kind of not hinged in. And really, from my perspective and understanding currently of the whole, is that that's why we're here, is to feel the one in a body, in a cell, in this matrix of chemistry. We can't do that if we're sitting everything on top of trauma. So it's very, very vital now that we are able to face this with compassion, with a heart. And yes, I totally agree. Breathwork is fundamental. Breathwork and presence are the fundamental prerequisites of us having a conscious awareness. Otherwise, we're just creating a false reality. And we can't really know it, can we? We have this, me and Damien have this discussion. Really, when we move into presence, and it is a deeper inquiry to maybe the surface spaces that we've had where we love to go off and kind of explore, but we're brought back to the body, that we do have to sit with the unknown, that we really can't control the outcome, and we do not have the answers. And that place of unknowing can be very, very uncomfortable if we're not going into the root and forming that really solid foundation. And I know that's been my journey this year, and continues to be the journey. It's where we're at right now. So yeah, I haven't really got anything to add really, apart from that. Just the intimacy. I think that was a really lovely word, Damien, because it's what we crave ultimately. We all crave the intimacy, but we're unable to have intimacy because we're trying to control reality. We're trying to control everything, and we're in it. The control is coming from the subconscious, not necessarily from the conscious. So it's kind of like we're fighting ourselves and we don't even know. And that's, of course, what we're seeing so much of now in the outer space. It's that all coming to the fore, so we can see it, we can face it together with compassion.
Yeah, beautiful, thank you. And it's interesting as well, because you and I were both in Glastonbury and met up, and with Zahara as well, and with quite a few other people on various days. So it's hard to know for me what was Lionsgate energies and what was just Glastonbury blast kind of working its way through my body too. And that feels really important at the moment. While, especially because, we've not really had the opportunity to gather together other than in this way, online. So it's felt very important for me, at least, to be actually meeting people in person. And yeah, I just so want that to continue as well. But at least we do have online, which is incredible. But the energies, I don't know if the code sharing is more when you're in person, because I know that it happens and can happen, I would say, as easily in this medium. But there is something different, and I can't put my finger on exactly what that is when you're actually gathering together in person. But it almost feels like that won't necessarily need to be in the future, that this gathering together online is some kind of practice, some kind of preparation for us gathering together. Susanne, what do you want to share on that?
I agree that there's something fundamental happening when we're together. I noticed it because obviously we've had a bit of a break from social gathering, that when we have started again, particularly because for those of you that don't know, Glastonbury Avalon is a very sacred place to do with energy. So it has a heightened energy vortex. So it's going to move incrementally, have a different energy to maybe other places. But when we were meeting, I felt that we had so much presence in different dimensions with us. It was palpable. You could feel the energy. You could feel it on your skin. You could feel it in your breathing. It was so beautiful, the subtle shifts that we had. We weren't saying anything a lot of the time. There was no light language changing, from our voices, but yet there was a lot of exchanging going on. And there was things happening that I felt, particularly when we moved into trust. There was, it's okay to share what happened in the White Spring with we just fell. We went into to work with the water, and unintentionally, there was no intention whatsoever. We fell into a kind of energy where it was almost like there were several of us, and we became kind of one voice, one energy, and it kind of came apart and went back together. But it was the first time in my life at this stage of being open, trusting, where I couldn't differentiate between another human being and myself and the water and the building and the earth and being in that energy. It was an incredible experience, life-changing, really. So the more that we can perhaps move into that trusting space, and where we don't have a judgment about what the outcome is, or even afterwards analysing it and just saying this was the moment, this was the perfect space, the more we're going to be able to utilise maybe what we're bringing in. And I don't know, I don't have any. I've run out of all the textbooks and the rule books and everything, but that certainly feels aligned. But yeah, absolutely, the spaces of silence are definitely preparing us for that trusting space of moving, staying in the body and anchored in the physical, and being able to have multidimensional awareness at the same time. I'm definitely having experiences of that now, and feeling very grounded with it. It's not challenging to move consciousness or even move into other spaces, particularly, and have awareness when people share. Say, I was just sharing the other day with a friend. She was sharing an experience. I was in the experience. It was the whole building, the body, the place, the space. It's easy now to enter the time streams, not particularly challenging. So I think the more that we open and trust, there's things happening with our consciousness, perhaps, and the way that we are, which defy explanation rationally, obviously, but that we can be comfortable with having those experiences instead of making them this big woo-woo kind of big thing that we have to strive for. This is actually quite natural. It's quite a normal part of our ways, but it's very much enmeshed with the deep work as well. You're not spiritually advanced because you're having those experiences. It's just that's part of our human evolution, and we're facing everything at the same time.
Yeah, nice. And there was something that I want to kind of come back to in that. So what happened in the White Spring, for those of you that don't know, there's three kind of separate pool areas in there. And there were 5 of us, and there's perhaps something in that number too. There was like 5 nodal points. And we Zahara and I were singing together, and you were singing as well. And I can't remember if the 3 of you were singing. You were more together, and Zahara and I were together. And then just spontaneously, we all stood around the larger pool in there, and we're all singing together. Oh. And it was so, so powerful. And it was really beautiful as well. I don't think anyone was maybe people were in the water. Yeah, I think people did go in the water at the time. But there was like a layer of energy around us. There was behind us on our side, there were 2 young men, and I think there were men behind you as well. And there was something deeply, I don't even know the word, but there was something deeply profound about we 5 standing there in our sacred feminine energy, singing as one. There were 5 voices, but we were all singing as one. and something about that energy of the masculine being behind us, kind of in support. And it was, yeah, it was very, very, very beautiful. And something that I wanted to, because I wrote when you said it about the voice, there was something that I can't put into words about the voice as well, and about the voices coming together. But there's something deeply powerful about us using our voice in that way. It's our most powerful tool. It's you know, to use our voice in our own body is incredibly, incredibly powerful. And no one else's voice is better for my body than my voice. And no one else's voice is better for your body than your voice. But we're very, you know, we've held back our voice so much. So yeah, I just feel that you both might have something extra to weave in regards to the voice.
Yeah, I felt in that space. I know myself and Damien have worked in voice as well. That particular space, I've had a big journey with my voice in Light Language Lounge because I'm really confident at speaking, you know, and just letting it come through. But I have had significant blocks around toning and around allowing source to come through me and to surrender. So I have spent every which way trying to control this, and met, as Damien said, intensive resistance. And it's had me in tears. It shut me down. It nearly made me walk away so many times. And a lot of it, I would have said it was about power, but actually it was about accepting love. It was actually about accepting love. Just the love of God, source in, and trusting that I don't know, and I'm not in control. There's no need to control this. And I felt when we were in the White Spring, so significantly, I went into the spring, and before we joined, I had no intention of going in the waters at all. I mean, I'm thoroughly resistant, but something was driving me, something that was less resistant than what my mind wanted to say, which is don't take your clothes off and go in that water. It's cold and you'll be naked and people will look at you. That there was a purity, and I was remembering a pure state from other spaces, from multi-dimensional times when I had been immersed in holy water and my body had surrendered and I'd been taken through that process. So without meaning to, I fell into that. It was like the resistance just wasn't there, maybe because of my sisters and their masculines there, that it was the right time for lots of reasons. When I went in the water, I became one with the water. I felt like I dissolved in that space, and my voice went like a flower, like this flower that was just opening. I had no control over it. And that was the beginning. To feel that then with my sisters and in that space was like feeling so many other spaces all in one moment. And I feel that's what happens when we meet together in the heart, or even just with ourselves in the space, and we can actually, as Damien said, we can be present and meet resistance and meet the tears and meet all of the programming that we've got that stops this thing from opening with the heart and with the soul to be a vessel. Then that's when we really start to transform. And I feel very strongly that as we do this more together, that we're going to create vortices of light on Earth and potentially anchor a lot of energy and transform things. I feel it's creational.
Yeah.
Damien.
And the voice holds the codes of creation as well. Yeah, Damien, up to you, my love.
Yeah, just adding a little in terms of relationship to the voice. If we think of the voice as being our expression, now obviously our expression can also come through movement as well, but generally when you ask people what they think about when they first think about expression, they're going to say your voice. They're not necessarily going to think about like mime, for example, or dance or another creative medium in that respect. And as we were touching upon earlier, all of our conditioning really sits upon that authentic expression. And what is it to actually show up on that place of authentic expression? And as Susanne was touching upon, really ultimately we have no idea what that looks like. We have a sort of spiritualized concept of what it looks like when I show up as my authentic self, and I'm going to be really loving and compassionate and light and and whatever the image may be. And all of that has no basis in reality whatsoever. However sublime that image may be, it's still an image. At the very best, it's a good emulation of it. But it's fake, essentially speaking. And it's because of that, essentially, it's going to have egoic consciousness within it. So that space where we really open and surrender into that space of trust and really that alignment with divine intention. So it's often when I work, I will I'll enter into that space where somebody will come with a specific focus of intention. They may say, I've got such and such going on physically with me. And there is a focus of, holding that space of intention for that. But then, a deep surrender into mystery and how divine intention moves through that. Because I, from the level of ego, have no idea whatsoever what needs to be done there. It may be that something completely different needs to be addressed. I have no idea. But at the same time, there is a place for holding that focus of intention because it creates focus and specificity. That's always the word that I try to wrap my tongue around. I should find another word for that. And also what you were talking about in terms of meeting in person versus meeting over distance, because there is an energetic physics to how this stuff works. People tend to sort of think of it as like, well, I don't really know how it works, and it's just energy and da 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 da. And it's like, well, no, there's actually a science to how this works. And why we talk about sacred geometry and sound, etc., and why we know that certain sounds affect certain chakras and resonate with certain aspects of the body and energy field, etc., etc., etc. So just in terms of meeting in person, absolutely, that's a completely different experience. And just in terms of energetic bridging, even, it's takes more energy and more focus to bridge at a distance. Just does. And there are certain focuses of what is possible just due to the energetic physics of how energy works that can take place in person that can't necessarily take place at a distance, or require a lot more focus and a lot more energetic development to take place at a distance, just because of how energy works. And there's a lot of magical thinking around that, and people go, well, I should just be able to do this because it's just energy. And it's like, I think that's wishful thinking. It's just not reality, and it just doesn't work like that, as much as we may wish that it did. The truth is that whilst we are in these bodies, until we are fully realized, there are certain energetic limitations. It's just the nature of living in third dimensional density. It's different to if we were living in some higher dimensional field where there isn't that energetic density. Absolutely, completely different, because there's simply not that density there, but here in the body, there's the reality of that, and the energetic physics that accompany that. But yeah, when we come together in person, absolutely, hugely powerful. What can take place, particularly through that, from that space of really where we drop into that space of heart resonance with one another, which again, comes back to that word I used earlier of intimacy. How do we really open into that space of intimacy and trust with one another? And often we think of that as being a deeply vulnerable type space, but it's actually the space of our true power, because we're rooted in the truth of who we are there. That other position can look powerful, as it were, but it's this sort of power, which, if we're coming from a place where we feel very powerless and we're met with that, obviously it looks very powerful and scary and etc., etc. But if we're rooted in the truth of who we are, that comes to us, it's like, what's the issue? We just meet it from here, and we meet it however we meet it in the moment, however that happens to look. And we don't know how that looks until that moment unfolds. And so, as Susanne was saying, we come from that space of no agenda, really, and then there's just that real sort of spontaneous, innocent arising, which is where the magic happens, which is a lot of what we explore in the Light Language Lounge, which might be a nice sort of segue into discussing such, as it were. So, as many of you who are watching or will be watching this, I'm sure already know, some of you may not know, myself and Susanne have been holding a space for probably about the past 2 years or even longer, something like that.
Yeah. I think it's almost close to 3 that we've really? Done it. I can't remember. Time's gone now, but I think we've done it together for a couple of years.
Yeah, it's been quite some time. Wow. And really just a space to come together and to explore what we've been discussing. And we call it Light Language Lounge, so we have that umbrella. So it is an exploration of light language. But really myself and Susanne's understanding of that is how that exploration of light language brings us into that space of presence and authentic expression, and how we show up in the world from that. So light language can obviously look like this very way out esoteric things, that somebody sitting there speaking what can sound like complete gobbledygook, but it's not. When one is in that stream and speaking it, there's a definite focus of a transmission of presence. And even when listening to it, there's a certain level of energetic sensitivity. People pick up on that in that sense. And light language can even be expressed in our native tongue as well. Why it's often expressed in gobbledygook, for want of a better word, is because that gets us out of our head. It brings us into that space of just play and openness and spontaneity, and where we're allowed to be silly, as it were, and playful. Very often we're in this, we're taught, like, I have to get it right, and we make it very serious. It's like my serious spiritual practice, and I'm speaking light language and giving this transmission, and it's like, really? Okay, if that's what works for you, fair enough, but it's not what works for me here. So yeah, it's that dropping into, I suppose, that space of playfulness and innocence. And if we look at the nature of the divine, the nature of creation. It's obviously hugely playful and creative and innocent and open. So that's really what we explore in the lounge, how we drop into that space and show up from that place of open innocence and spontaneity and play, and the deep impact that actually has in terms of life and how we show up in life from that place. Because often we are showing up, as we've touched upon, from that place that is deeply guarded, place of control, place of manipulation, seduction, trying to have our needs met, trying to survive. And when we allow that to soften or drop away, what happens in that space? Do you want to add anything, Susanne?
Yeah, it was really beautiful, actually, Damien. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, I felt when I was called to kind of set this up, predominantly it was to set up a safe space, because I was going into light language groups and I could feel what we've said here, which is, there's nothing wrong with it, and it's a natural part of development, is we hide behind these identities and we hide behind these safe light language personas or expressive personas, where we've kind of assumed a whole lot of energy, which is largely an illusion. And I could feel this playing out and creating a lot of disharmony in spaces, and I felt in my heart that I wanted to have a safe space like that. I wanted, so I had to find that inside of myself, and my soul said, well, just set up a space and let's see what happens. So that kind of is where it was founded from, and where it's developed over time. And certainly as myself and Damien have been exploring consciousness and presence, and where this can lead, I really observed this space opening, and it is held. It's like the energy holds itself. It's bigger than us. Like, though we show up there, it's like a holism, and there's no need to show up in any particular way. And I think that's the thing, where safety, the sense of safety that we create, or is in our hearts to create, is a way in which people can safely explore, because there's no need to turn up in a particular way. We've said and we've shared many times, we'll continue to share, that silence is as much an expression of light language, and like you said, maybe just our native tongue also. There isn't a particular definition. We love this definition of what light language is, but actually it's so many things, but it's really founded from being a vessel and finding the emptiness and being comfortable with the emptiness, so that we're not controlling the essence of what is given. So then when we approach a space, any space, and the charge is coming and that's moving, we're not afraid to express it. So that can also move into self-healing. Because sometimes, like, I just wanted to move it briefly into where Denise, when you shared that very powerful light language expression that was really deeply moving the energy, we're often most scared of that energy. It's nice to go into birdie or angel and have it all tweety and nice, but what happens when we want to move some of that stuck energy in the root? We've got all those languages too. We've got all of that expression too. So light language lounge for me is about learning to be comfortable with yourself, your body, the presence, and having that expression as a vessel and bringing it back into your life, so that then that's what we call embodiment. We're going to live that value and be that value as we live. So for me, it's not just purely, although it's called light language lounge, it's really like life language lounge. And that's how I feel we've kind of developed it, Damien, just naturally. We never really set out with this. It's just as we've matured maybe into the experience of what we're doing, and that's felt there's just such a variance of people that come. Some people come just to listen, to heal. They never speak, they're just present. Some people hold space beautifully. Denise has been somebody that's been doing that with us for a while. And people come that are wanting to explore, and maybe they're just curious about light language or expression, and other people find this as a very, very safe space to be and explore the different variations of different things that we have. We've had many people begin their journeys in the lounge, which is just, and watching people fly now, you know, I mean, just what they're doing, it is, God, I mean, it's like, never realised that you could found something that could do something so beautiful and hold such a beautiful space. So with that, we felt for quite a while. I've worked with Denise for a while. I followed Denise, and we've known each other for a while, and felt very comfortable with your exploration, your energy, and your presence. And we asked Denise a little while ago if she'd be interested in joining us and becoming a trio to hold the space. And it's like a relationship, isn't it? And we are exploring this space together, and now is the time. So we approached Denise again and asked her, and she's accepted. So Denise is going to be joining us, and so we're going to be, I don't know what we call it, tri-hosts, a trio of holding the space from now on. And we're very open as to how that goes. It's really always felt like, for me, a community. It was never like Susanne at the helm and driving this. No space I ever hold would want to hold would feel like that. I feel like we're in a co-creation, and that it can move and it can honour the spaces that we are. And that's what I would always want a space to be: safe and honest and true and explorative, so that we can have that level of intimacy and honesty, and not be afraid when things will inevitably sometimes do come. We, instead of running away and going into story and getting into drama, that we're actually providing fundamental skills that we can be with the energy and be present with the energy. So we then become better humans, ultimately. Yeah, that's it.
There's the little announcement. There's the little bit of exciting news. So yeah, I'm very excited about this, and I'm very honoured as well. And having said that, it's almost felt like I've been a part of this anyway. It's interesting how that's kind of worked, even though I've not always present on the calls, but I feel my energy in the lounge within that container. Yeah, so I'm really excited how it's going to be, and where it goes from here. So you've had a bit of a break as well in August. You've taken some time off, because it's every week, isn't it, that you hold the lounge, and that you have held the lounge for 2 years or more without much time off in that time. So yeah, you've just had a month off. And also to mention, you also do, normally, as you say, it's not recorded, it's not live, but once a month, as well as the weekly ones, you've started having it live on Facebook too. How, like, I've been present on some of those. How has that either had a knock-on effect, or what's kind of grown from doing that?
I think there's a spontaneity in not recording things. So we felt into this very deeply, and I felt into it with my team as well. And I felt that when we record things, it's lovely, and obviously it's necessary sometimes, but there's a spontaneity in a non-recorded space where people are able to feel more vulnerable and therefore be more authentic. So with the emphasis being on authenticity, I felt it was the right thing not to make that. It's like you have to be present for it, or at least feel in. You know, people can feel in and just be present energetically as well as being in the Zoom, but that was necessary. But there was also a space where we could take the energy of that, so the energy of that spontaneity, with people who we knew. So, you know, people who have come in and we can feel they're fairly clean with the streams, that where we take that as an example, so we could show what that is. What does that mean? Because otherwise it's just like like Damien said, it's like an esoteric concept, isn't it, of what does light language mean? What is it exactly? And you don't see the variance, because often, you know, we think of light language just as mainly being spoken. It's just like a thing that's kind of in our head, but actually it's just such a rich variability. And then we do have most people who do it like that. We've also got musicians, we've got people who are artists. You know, I tend to kind of bridge all of them, and a lot of people do, but there's some people with unique expressions. I'm trying to bring some more people in who have discovered and give them that confidence to come and show that, you know, the expression, the variability in our community is incredible. And so the lives for me are an opportunity. And we do have people coming in who aren't always live with us in the groups, they want to come in because they can feel the energy, and, you know, we know them in our community, that come in and co-create with us. So then the energy that we create being live, the synergy, is off the charts. It's showing us what we can be. It's showing us the potential of what we can be. So all the practice that we kind of have, and falling apart and being really vulnerable and facing ourselves in the group that's not recorded, we can then bring that into some space where people can see that as an example. And I think there's space for both. So that's why we chose to have the live as well. It's like a space of that exploration, but available for all beings. Service in a way, I guess.
And it's really sorry.
Did you have anything to add, darling?
It's a really beautiful, because in a way, when it's not recorded and it's just with people of like minds within the Light Language Lounge, because you're unlikely to be there if you know, if you don't want to be, if you've not got an interest in it. So it's kind of it's vulnerable, but it's also vulnerable within a safe space. And it's a lot of us that are on this path, it's steps, and it's a process to being seen doing this. And it's going live within a group, so there's still the safety of it being within a group, but it is live, and it is going out into the larger community. So it's for a lot of people, it's like a next step, isn't it, of coming out, because a lot of us use that expression because it does feel like a coming out when you're speaking light language and doing it more publicly. Yeah, so it's a really beautiful, it allows that progression too.
It can feel very exposing, you know, and I think if I think back, you know, I'm not one of these people that's been at it for years at all. You know, the light language for me came fairly quickly. First written first spoken, but it was very quiet spoken, and I was so terribly afraid of it, because, you know, I thought it might be like the language of Satan. It was involved with a lot of inner work to release the fear around being authentic. So in that early exploration, it came through my body as well. So my body was starting to like make my hands were moving. I was in like the supermarket, and my body would start rocking, and my hands would start moving, and I'd start making like sounds. And, you know, my mum was like trying to do the shopping and ignore that her crazy daughter was, you know, making these things. And I would have looked maybe like some special case of girl in the community, But actually, this was spontaneous movement, and yeah, of course, I could have controlled it. I could have stopped myself from doing it, but it just didn't feel right anymore to suppress this. And you know, I realized through the release of this over time that, you know, my soul was dying. I was dying. I was so dead inside. And so underneath, layers and layers and layers of forgottenness. Where all the colour had been dampened down, and I'd forgotten this love and this creativity and this colour and the level of compassion and connection, connectivity. And the world was so blunt, and was at the root of my depression. That was at the root of my disconnection. That was at the root of my inability to take responsibility for myself and just to look outside all the time. So actually, that opening, that budding out of trusting our natural expression, whatever it might be, it is healing. Predominantly, it's healing and freeing of the soul, and for that's the reason, because it takes such a degree of trust, because within our communities, of course, you know, from other perspectives, you could be seen as being all kinds of different labels. But if you look at kids, you look at babies, they're giving out light language. Kids, they're making the shapes. They're so pure. And we can learn to be like children again. And that's Joe Dispenza calls that like, you know, that flow space, the generous present moment. And that's the space. It's the gift that we've got for ourselves. So I see light language as a like an interim gift for us to remember ourselves, and then bring back the divinity into the space where we're just so free that it's not a thing anymore. It's not even light language, it's just a thing. We just are that then. But we need to have these kind of stepping stones at the moment, because of the level of suppression and trauma that we've lived in.
Yeah, thank you. And it's incredible how many people are speaking light language now. Not even, you know, because that's a name for it. It's just a name to call it something. You know, it's love language as well, and it's not really a language. It's love expression. And it blows me away just how many people are stepping up and doing this now. And I find it really interesting, and I've said this before, that it feels like it's it's almost like an interim. It's like a stepping stone to telepathy as well. And you know, sometimes if there's a concept that you can't quite grasp or can't quite express, if you bring it through in light language, it gives you a greater understanding of it, because it's holding so much information within a, you know, within a packet, within a little packet. And it just seems to bring you so much clarity too. Now, are there any codes that you wish to share, or shall we speak some light language, or how do you want to play it now? Oh, are you pointing to Damien?
I'm not on the Facebook. I'm pointing to the floor, but on Zoom, I'm pointing to Damien.
Because on my screen, you pointed to the floor.
It's quite funny, actually. I'll try it that way and see if it works. Yeah. Probably it's the opposite. I can't do it. It's all mirrored. No, I'm pointing to you. Look, nothing like a bit of humour. Yeah, I mean, we've got code. We both got codes. We can show a little bit. Do you want to go, Dave?
We just pull up the old share screen. So some of you from the lounge will be familiar with this code. I'm sure you've seen it before. For others, this is a code that grew from a collaboration with Susanne. I asked her to draw a code representing the sort of core of the work that I am blessed to offer into the world. And as she was bringing through the template for that catalyzed this code to come forth. And we're actually in the process at present of bringing through a further one, which will be an evolution of this particular code. And for myself, this code is very much related to what we've been discussing, that deep process of embodiment and that deep process of really what we could call the divine takeover, as it were. You know, how the divine really meets us within our humanness and what it is to really truly be human. And we have this whole concept or idea of what human is, but that isn't human. The closest I would say that we come to that is, you know, really in those moments where, you know, the heart really opens and we're really just present and we meet one another within that space. And you know, those deep moments where love, compassion breaks through the heart. Those moments where, you know, another way of putting it is where we as ego aren't there. You know, and like Susanne was saying, you know, we become the empty vessel in a way. And paradoxically speaking, that vessel is not empty, that vessel is full. You know, it's full of love, it's full of light, it's full of creativity. Adyashanti, who is a very well-known spiritual teacher that I'm sure many of you are familiar with, describes it as the dazzling darkness or the pregnant void. So we think of a void as being empty, but obviously a void that is pregnant is full and rich and fecund with you know, limitless, boundless creative potential. And so all of that is really represented through this code. And within such, you'll see, if this is going to work, with the old arrow, these three, what some people see as petals, I've drawn as flames. So in esoteric tradition, those are seen to represent the threefold flame of the heart. And so those qualities that we touched upon earlier of love, light, and power, and really how that relates to what we were touching upon in terms of how we deeply come into presence. When we receive the light, we're opening to that quality of deep wisdom, opening to that quality of a deep relationship of intimate connection with reality, where we are clearly seeing reality as it truly is. And then through that pink flame, we're opening to that presence of love and compassion. And so in the Buddhist tradition, for example, that would be known as compassionate wisdom. So that would be represented through the essence, the essential nature of the path, as it were, the left and right hands or left and right wings of a bird. And so we have that clear seeing of reality, and then we have how we respond to that through right action, through compassion. And that gives rise to what we could term power. Not the power to control reality, not the power to dominate reality, not the power over, but the power that we stand in when we are really intimately open and connected with reality. And so all of that's encoded into the code, and then we can see the image of the dragon here, and then the larger dragon face behind that here. And for myself, dragons really embody the essence of that. They take us deeply into that space of the primordial wild love, radical aliveness, that innocence of our being. And so I just wanted to share that with you as a visual representation of what we've been discussing. It gives you a different sense of such. We've been speaking a lot, and there's obviously a way in which that is met and understood through the intellect, and then a deeper energetic transmission of that which goes beyond the words. But this is a way of connecting that with that beyond words. Like if one was to go into an art gallery, and connect with a beautiful piece of art and really open through one's heart to that. There's a completely different experience that arises that is beyond words. I'll just zoom in.
Wow, I love the detail in that. And the energy right at the center as well, like that's, I keep, it feels very Kuan Yin in there in the center.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the core of my work really comes through Prajna Paramita, who is a particular manifestation of the divine. So we think of the divine as being complete, total mystery, but through grace it manifests in different expressions so that we can connect with it. So one such expression might be Christ, for example. Another expression is that many people know I work with a lot is Merlin, and that quality of magical transformation. But my core relationship with the divine is really through this expression that is Prajna Paramita, who is really seen as the mother of all Buddhas, or the compassionate wisdom mother. And Kuan Yin is often also seen in many ways as the mother of all Buddhas, or the feminine emanation of Avalokitesvara, who is the Buddha that embodies all of the Buddha's compassion. So there's a definite resonance there. And I drew the center as to represent the threefold flame. You can see it has the blue, gold, and pink in it. But many people also see it as a feminine type figure there, which wasn't intentional, but I'm sure as Susanne and yourself know, when we're drawing codes, we're not necessarily doing things intentionally, as it were. And through that process of deep surrender that comes in. And I certainly know within my own case, there are times where I'm like, part of me comes through and I'm like, but I want it to look like this, and I want this color because it's pretty. The spirit are like, no, it's this color. It looks like this. And this code actually ended up looking very different to how I had initially anticipated it would look. I mean, I produced them in Photoshop, as I think you both know, and many of the people here also will know. And even though you're only seeing like this layer, I think this image has something like 80, 90 layers to it. So, you know, they grow and evolve in that sense and continue to grow and evolve. As I said, this code is a base frequency code for one that myself and Susanne are in the process of bringing through at present.
It was a huge evolution, this code, wasn't it, Damien? Because I mean, when we initially discussed it, I mean, this is a great example of people that are watching, because there aren't many people that are co-creating codes. I think we're quite unusual in this way, is that we've got this deep exploration that we've been having for a long time, you know, probably a long, long time. But we can feel this coming in, and I know that when Damien asked me, I resisted the request, you know, because it was just so deeply challenging. The melanic energy is profoundly transformational, and it took me into a lot of resistance, particularly about how a code should look. Just like you said, it was not appearing how perhaps I wanted to make the code. I'm very free. I don't use Photoshop, is a different way of working. And I was very free. I was totally trusting the space. I wasn't measuring anything, nothing, you know, it was very haphazard. I was just trusting. And this code was really a lot of the basis for where I had to learn self-discipline. And I had to learn, when a code is presented in a way that you put yourself aside, you put your mind aside, you put your thoughts about what it should look like aside, and you surrender to the energy. And it was the beginning for me of devotion, the service, devotion. It changed me and evolved me. And I was in Portugal at the time. I would cry. I couldn't even speak to Damien for, I don't know. We had a couple of weeks where I couldn't even look at him. I was so cross with him for opening me to the energy, but it was all resistance. It was all healing. It was all evolution. It was nothing to do with Damien whatsoever or myself. This was all a creation of the ego. So this code was pivotal, and obviously, you know, what goes on behind the scenes is that we developed this, and then obviously Damien's taken this and it's evolved, hasn't it? It's so beautiful. Been watching this evolve over months, and now we're at the verge of another birthing. It's been going on for some time, and there's been codes going through that. Obviously, I've had to evolve to bring the new energy. So I have evolved through the codes I brought through the Lionsgate. They evolved me and again into a new layer of devotional practice. And so coding isn't always about, you know, you just kind of bring it through and you make a doodle. Sometimes it's extremely deep. And, you know, we don't have a book that shows us how to do this. There is no manual. This is soul. This is trust. This is absolute trust. The hours that we spend doing this, they're not paid in money. It's like a personal devotion to presence. And so when we move with this kind of work, it just is beyond you. It is, isn't it? It just is like it's like you are the portal, but not the thing, not the item. And that's at the core of the practice of presence, of being that empty space. So yeah, I think these types of co-creations are going to be more common. We're going to feel them, and obviously work with the energy long before anything goes to production. And there's significance in these co-creations. It's beautiful and evolving. The mystery, as you would say.
And it's a real sense of birthing a code as well. Like it, as you say, it's not just simply drawing things, pen to paper, pen to computer, whatever it is. It is an embodiment, and it's often, you know, I often refer to this one, the Unity codes that I did twice, the separation that my life went through, because you're holding all the frequencies that are relating to that as well. So you hold the, you know, you might call it the shadow of that too. And that has to be worked through as the codes are being processed.
Yeah, we have to embody them, otherwise we can't birth them. That's why it's probably not time now, but over the Lion's Gate, I'd unexpectedly, without any kind of prior warning, started to have very strong experiences with angels. You'll be hearing a lot more about this, I'm sure, over coming months, and questioning deeply what angels were. You know, what are they? Coming up against all sorts of crazy little things my mind was telling me about what they might be, and questioning again what I was creating. Was I creating this? Was it ego? You know, what sort of explorations were this? But the energy was overwhelming, and it was taking me into a new space of creation for codes, where the codes became stories, big stories, and those stories were born not necessarily from a named space. You know, we'd say it's this dimension or this being or that profile, that it was just God, it was just source. And I didn't get to choose that energy, that I was just going to be the portal for this. And it scared me. I was again, I'm, you know, human. It felt like a big ask, a very exposing, and so again, just at the beginning of Lion's Gate, I had to begin that journey, and the first thing was actually an angel, a code, and sharing that energy in the gateway, and then drawing Lion's Gate instead of like what you would think, oh, the lion, which eventually came, but I had to move through this code, which was the swan energy, and see, like Damien said with that code with the dragon, the transformational planes that we're moving through in these expressions, they're not fixed. So when you see a code, you know, we're used to looking at art, and, you know, I mean, I'm from an art background, so, you know, you could like wax lyrical about what this might mean, or, you know, what might the artist have been experiencing when they were going through the expression. But actually this is beyond anything, because it holds open a gateway of energy which is only for the person individually at that time that's meeting that energy. It's not for anybody to define what that might be. It's holding that space open when you're coding that you are no longer that. It has to be anything. It can just be that open. That's the gift of what we bring. And then, so the new energy for me is much more about that. And to through that surrender is stories, and that's what the latest codes have been about. I've had to embody them. It's been some of the hard, and then truly, I mean, you know, we're all doing it. It truly is the work, because it's very challenging. And it takes you into all kinds of experiences with your body, where life reflects. You can't walk away from it, because reality is right there in your face. There's no escape. And once you truly devote to this space, that's it. Then, you know, when you're coding at this, I don't want to say level, but at this stage of awareness, there's just nowhere to hide. There's just no point in it. It serves no purpose or no energy. It's a waste of energy. You want everything to be efficient. So when you're not being efficient, it shows. And it's good for people to see. It's really helpful to just show up and go, yeah, I'm human. You know, that's what being human is. So there's so much lessons in all of this for us all. That's why I'm so grateful for light language and for everyone, forever you, and everyone I know, everyone in the community, for being so embracing and explorative.
Talking while I'm muted. It does feel slightly incomplete without showing the codes that you've just been sharing about.
Sorry.
No,
I was sort of in
fine.
transmission, Denise. And when I go in there, I'm like, I'm a bit useless in the tech department. All right, just give us a sec.
I know we've been here an hour.
Sorry for running over for those of you. So this one, do you think? All right, I'll just do it. Quick.
Only if you feel to.
Oh, it's okay. All right, I've got it open now. So I think most people have seen them, but just in case you haven't, sorry, I'm still being inefficient at Zoom. Just give me a sec. Share screen, and then we'll have the codes. There we go. So that one, the first code that we talked about was the Devi Angel, and this has kind of evolved from an earlier code which I haven't got, which is the Sapphire Temple. So really I've been on a journey this whole year with just surrendering to the energy, and you know this is about color, frequency, sound, geometry, everything that is presented is sort of beyond what you're seeing. It's much more into feeling through what your eyes are telling you you're seeing and feeling the new sensory systems. So we've got these new sensory arrays coming online, and that's what this is about. It's helping us to kind of unlock that presence, like what is it that's actually here, and just being, again, as Damien has shared, just being present with it. It can open all kinds of spaces. So this one's the angel. This is like a temple space, really opening to just ask, what is this? What are light being? What is a light being? What is a being of light? What does it really give us a sense of when we meet this space? Because sometimes we're just meeting ourselves as well, obviously. And then what came from that was, over Lionsgate, was this swan code. It actually started in Glastonbury when I was on a kind of walkabout and met some swans and the water, and had a kind of living, awake, multi-dimensional experience, which I know a lot of you are having as well, and brought me squarely into this energy. So this is, again, it's angelic. It's an angelic energy. It's divine presence, and it's very much mixed in with the medium of water. So water as a conduit for consciousness, and water in multiple states, not just the physical state that we experience here, you know, a molecular state of water and its different varieties we might experience on Earth, because it's a living consciousness. It's a medium for information and for consciousness, but that there is a wider presence or a wider state of these elemental presentations as well. So it's really taking us into that space as well, where we've got this. What this is really about is where the body, so our physical body, is really that conduit for the meeting of the energy. It's like the essential tunnel, if you like, for us to have the experience. So this code, which I have done a live about actually, Denise, where we go into much more detail with the different layers, was what evolved from it. And eventually, after much pontificating, come out with there, we had the lion. And that one was this code. I'll just bring it up. This one was so many hours in. I don't think I've ever done a code that's had so many hours in, of where every single pen stroke, every hair, sometimes I was in tears. I was just crying. I was moving through emotions. I was breathing. I was being held. I was being journeyed. I was being picked up out of my body and taken into spaces I can't remember a word for. I was open-eyed, looking out into nature and seeing things I have no explanation for rationally, and bringing it into this space. So being asked just to step through all my fears about what consciousness might be, and to feel the level of support that we have for that change and that expression, without it needing to be anything particular. So this code is still early in its landing in of the energy. It's a very new energy. I think we all agree that the energy coming in for us all is unprecedented in a human vessel. So this is very much the early days of this new phase of being. And the lion, I mean, this collective here, the representation, I guess, in the physical representation of the lion here is a Lyran collective, which could be, you might have experienced it in lots of places, but really it's, again, just like the collectives that we work with are just here to support us with non-interference, just to be that space. It is ours as well, just in a larger concept of what we experience as one, with the law of one. So yeah, that's the codes for those of you who might not have seen them. But really, I don't really have a theme. I just trust what comes and surrender to the energy and take the journey. Like I guess all three of us do that, don't we? And that's the beauty of it, really, is just being able to be with that flow.
Wow, those are really powerful codes.
Okay.
And it's so interesting, the evolution, how much more energy can be packed into all the codes as well. The more we evolve, the greater the energy that they can hold. Yeah, very powerful. Especially the lion. Don't want to single out one because they're all really amazing and beautiful, but yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting actually, because something that just quickly, there's something that is really interesting is I've been called back to all the codes I've done to regenerate them. I think I spoke briefly with Todd about this, that the regenesis, because when I originally coded them, I was in a certain energy of consciousness and awareness, and obviously that's evolved. And I've been asked to go back and look at the codes, and this is incredible. Again, it's a devotion to actually take the code apart again, and in some cases completely redraw them from scratch with trust. And I've been asked to do that, and it's a beautiful journey. So just because you bring a code, don't dismiss it. It could sit in a drawer for like a year, and then suddenly you might get like a little nudge to like pull it out and have another look at it. So nothing's ever I don't feel anything's ever maybe complete in that sense as well. It's just interesting because we're kind of pioneers, aren't we, in this? We just get to explore. So never dismiss what we bring as being complete.
Oh, thank you both so much for joining me, for being my guests, for sharing all that you've shared. And thank you so much for the Light Language Lounge as well. I look for 4th of September. Is that the... Yeah, 4th of September is the next one. Do you know when the live is?
It's the 6th of September, my dear, is the next one.
Oh, 6th.
Yeah.
And have you got when the live one is?
Not as of yet.
So thank you, everybody who's been with us for this. Thank you all for your presence and for your energy, and for your beautiful hearts. And I just invite you to feel back into your heart space and let us end as we began, with our awareness in our hearts. And perhaps it might feel a little bit different in there from how it did at the beginning. So with that, grounded and anchored, feeling and your presence in your physical body, allowing yourself to be fully present in your beautiful physical vessel. And thank you also to those who are watching on the replay or on YouTube. So with love in your hearts, I bid you farewell. Oh, and just to say, if this resonates, please share. I'll see you next Friday on Love Speaks Love with Martin McNichol is returning with Sally Claridge. So look forward to that next week. Mwah. Lots and lots of